Dan soji chonam la chanju pardo dane chapsu chi dagi jinsu kibe sunam chi rola benjira sanje roba sho sanje chudan soji chonam la chanju pardo dane chapsu chi Dagi jinsu jibe sunam chi rola penche sanje droba shu sanje chudan suji chonam la chanchu pardo dane chapsu chi dagi jinsu jibe sunam chi rola penchira sanjen roba shu semjen tamje dewa tan deve jotan dembar church dungar tan dungar chi jotan chawar church dungar mebe dewa tamba tan mendra war church Niren chadan tan cherve Tanyom Chambola Nebar Churchi Semje Tamche Dewa Tan Devi Jotan Dembar Churchi Dungra Tan Dungra Chi Jotan Travar Churchi Dungra Mebe Dewa Tamba Tan Mindravar Churchi Niren chadan tan charve tan nyom chen wola nebar churche. Chom den de jambe yang la chan tsa lo. Kange lo dre drim nye dren dra nye tara nam da rap sarve. Chi nye tun gun chi jen si chi ni che tukara le bam ze. Kanda sebe tsara mari muntuma dungara chisareve Roso kun la puji tarse yan la chuju yang den song Rudara che ro nyamo nyelo leche cha ro dorze chen Amari munsara dungara nyuk chinye chunze ra janam Dene ta chen sa chu tar sun yun ten lu zo yar se tu yu ko chu ra chu ta chu nye jen zhe da lu mun se ren jan be yang la du se den chu je chen ra vu se re che da lu ten mo men ba rab sa ka dan ten chu shun lu to ba ye lu zhu bo ben na wa zar do sar
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being there. So, as I said this morning, this afternoon will be dedicated to discussion, to your questions, and we will finish with the refuge ceremony. Some people ask to take refuge. So one or two people, so we'll do it at the end. Until then, if you have questions, the mic is yours. The stage is yours. Thank you, Rinpoche. This morning you talked a lot about Demba. How to write it? Do you want the Tibetan spelling? Or pronunciation? We write it D-R-E-N-P-A, and the Sanskrit term is Smriti. So you extensively developed this notion in the context of the bodhisattva's path, and I was expecting to hear more about Sheshin. So can you talk more about Sheshin, please? So it's Smriti and Samprajnan. So Drenpa and Sheshin in Tibetan. So Drenpa is often translated as mindfulness in English. In French it was translated as vigilance, actually. Attention, paying attention. But the reality of that word is the fact of not forgetting. So Drenpa, this is in spoken Tibetan, it shows memory. It refers to memory. Chengidwe, do you remember? Could you remember? Do you remember? It's this idea of memory, to not forget. So remembering a virtuous object on which we put our attention, remembering our ethical discipline, remembering the bodhicitta that we understood, that we developed, to never forget it, to always keep it in mind. So it's memory in a general manner. And then if we come more precisely on shamatha exercise, so we take a virtuous object on which we put our attention. So it's the fact of not forgetting this virtuous object. And Sampranjan or Sheshin is a quality that comes from Drenpa, and it depends on Drenpa. Sometimes it's translated as vigilance or attention, but it's not really vigilance. Attention and vigilance in French are quite synonymous. So there is a kind of neologism that was created probably from the English word meta-awareness. So it is the consciousness, is the fact of being aware of what's happening inside oneself, being aware of what arises. The best way for me to describe it is the capacity to be aware, to notice what arises, like hatred and all. It's the capacity to take a step back and notice what's happening. So here it applies to many different things. For example, if we apply it to ethical discipline, is to see, to notice that we are actually breaking our engagement. For example, when harmful mind arises within ourselves, to not act consequently because we don't want to do it. So when the feeling of wanting to abandon one being arises, to be aware of that. So in the beginning, if there is no memory, there is no souvenir, no memory, then there is even less chance to notice that. So then, you see, the second Sheshin depends on Drenpa. You can see it in your own experience. If I don't have this attention to keep a vow, I'm not going to notice it when I do something that is contrary. So that point in meditation, it is because I remember the virtuous object that from the moment the agitation that brings my mind to select another object is distracted, meaning I don't keep in mind the virtuous object, then I'm gonna notice it. because with effort I'm keeping the virtuous object with attention. When we're not developing the calm quality, when we are falling into dullness, then we're going to notice it. And because we notice it, then we're going to be able to apply the remedy. And so we are able to do what is to be done. We're able to do what is necessary to develop the necessary qualities. For example, if I notice I'm actually going to the opposite of bodhicitta, I can remember the teachings, reflections, all what brought me to bodhicitta. I can remember the qualities of bodhicitta, etc., and come back on bodhicitta and not be distracted. So in the Bodhicharyavatara, Shantideva gives actually an illustration of the mind is like a savage elephant. It took wrong habit, it goes everywhere, it breaks everything. It's like a wild elephant. And why do we use the image of an elephant? Because the elephant can really harm a lot. It's very strong, very powerful, and it can do a lot. And in the same way, we shouldn't neglect mind. Mind can also destroy a lot. It's very powerful. So we're going to try to tame this elephant, pacify this elephant. We're going to try to domesticate this elephant. In order to domesticate this elephant, we need like a pillar, like ethical discipline, and with the rope of memory, we need to attach the elephant to the pillar. So this savage elephant can't go everywhere, and it is attached to virtue. And Sheishin is like the person with the hook. So when it goes too far, it's hitting a little bit with the hook. As soon as the elephant goes too far and is pulling on the rope, we bring it back. So the idea is to tame, domesticate one's mind and bring it to its original qualities, its positive potential, to go beyond one's delusion, negative tendencies, etc. Hello again, Rinpoche. I wanted to ask a question concerning Nirvana and Samsara. We say that those are the same, Samsara and Nirvana are the same, and they are just two different ways of seeing things. And Buddhism says that there is no end and no beginning to those. So here's my question. We say that bodhisattva are always working to alleviate being suffering, and they will be always in samsara as soon as suffering as being suffered. And here I see a contradiction. So Rinpoche says, maybe I'm gonna be able to clarify a bit on that point. Ultimately, in last analysis, there's no difference. We can't find any substance in samsara as an entity that will exist independently from nirvana. And why samsara is nirvana? It is because samsara are just appearances. Samsara is our grasping towards appearances, believing that appearances are true as they appear. This is what samsara is. It's that grasping. It's in this way that samsara is illusion, is said illusions, because those appearances aren't established as they appear. When we look for the substantiality of those appearances, we can't find it. This is why those appearances are nirvana. They are free of any true reality. They are free from the wrong attribution, the wrong input we give to them, which is a fiction that we keep, that we nourish. So that's why there is no difference between samsara and nirvana. So samsara and nirvana are in a way two different ways of grasping, and the basis of that is conditioned codependent arising and emptiness, or emptiness. Because it's emptiness, there are two possibilities. One of them that we recognize it and we are free, or we don't recognize it and we are in suffering. As long as there is emptiness, there is also the possibility to not recognize emptiness. So nirvana, in some way, is free of conditionment, but it also contains the possibility of samsara itself, without having there any contradiction. So it doesn't mean that beings can't be liberated. Beings are free actually, but they just don't recognize it. So there's always the possibility of not recognizing it. And that's why there is samsara for us. It is because some nirvana is emptiness and is not substantially established that there is this possibility of delusion, of non-recognition. So the primordial reality of mind and of phenomena is inseparable, which is inseparable from emptiness and luminosity. When this is recognized, this is wisdom that is free from any delusion. And when mind is established, and that mind is free from conditioning, from any fiction, from any becoming, from any suffering or pain. But mind doesn't become anything else than it has always been. It's just a question of recognition. So ignorance, delusion is the fact of being mistaken, where things are emptiness, grasping a self, and where there is luminosity, grasping an entity, a self, as something distinct and separated. I hope it clarifies a bit. I have two link questions. I'm going to try to say it clearly. So the first one is on this, about the three kayas you talked about. So for me, Nirmana Kaya is the material manifestation of a Buddha. Sambhoga Kaya is inaccessible to ordinary beings. And Sambhoga Kaya can manifest from the first bodhisattva Bhumi. And then we have the third body, Dhammakaya. So my question here is, does each Buddha have the three bodies? So Nirmanakaya maybe are one thing, and then Sambhogakayas are like Chenrezi. So do they have the same Dhammakaya, or are there many Dhammakayas? Here I can't really understand. It's hard for me to understand, because if there are many Dhammakayas, it's like if there were micro-egos and we again fall into duality. And if there is just one, I I actually asked a question to Philippe Cornu in the past, and he told me, no, it's not a big unity or where everyone is mixed, or there is still each Buddha with their own history. So here Rinpoche says you just have to think about emptiness, meaning that here we are trying to understand Dharmakaya through reification. We are trying to understand Dhammadhatu. We saw that the absolute dimension is emptiness, is luminosity. So in emptiness, to say there is a unity, we need to find a substantiality, a one. But in emptiness, there's nothing like that. Where is mind? So first we observe the emptiness of mind. We see there's no self. There are only the five aggregates. Where is the irreducible present? Where is its substance? There's no one. If there's no one, there's no multiple. If there's no one, there can't be a totality. So it's not like if all the Buddhas that have actualized, the Buddha have actually realized the full dimension of emptiness and understanding, so they are completely free of any delusion. It's not like if in the beginning there was a unity or a self. We always talk about a continuity, and this continuity manifested and perpetuated because of self-grasping. But in reality, there is neither an I or a non-I, a totality or multiple. Beings are neither one nor distinct from each other. Because if we admit they are one, we denigrate emptiness. We affirm a substantiality if we say there's one. And if we say there is multiplicity, then we don't affirm one, but a multitude of one. So if we don't find one, we can't find many, because multiple is just the addition of one. So in the ultimate dimension, beings are neither one nor multiple, because they are all emptiness. So emptiness is not like a basic fabrication where all unities are like in a big soup. So conventionally, relatively, for beings who can't see emptiness, it doesn't stop the Buddha to manifest for beings who can't perceive emptiness, appearing like they are different, but they are not themselves limited. They are not themselves limited because they are in absolute dimension. This is just for the one who didn't understand. He sees Buddha Shakyamuni, Buddha Amitabha, he sees Buddha Kashyapa, he sees a future Buddha that's gonna come in the future, Maitreya. They're gonna have a lifespan, disciples is gonna do different activities. So from our point of view, they have an individuality because we are in the dualist perception. We believe in appearances. We believe in the truth of appearances, and samsara is all about that. It's grasping all appearances as they appear. Actually, appearances appear not because they have a substantiality, but because they have none. So the fact that Buddha access to that absolute dimension doesn't exclude the fact that they manifest an individuality or singularity from the point of view of beings, without making them leaving the absolute dimension, nor disturbing them or forcing them to grasp a self. So it is a bit hard for us to understand. So because for us it's either one or multiple, one or separated, but it is beyond that. This is why it is beyond thought. And so, through analysis, we have to see the limits of our thoughts, of our conceptions, and we need to go beyond that. Thank you. And then the second question is the opposite thinking. If I think about suffering, dukkha, I find it a lot of qualities. Of course, we all want to get as far as possible from dukkha, but to me, it is more like a signal in civilization. If sentient beings or humans didn't suffer, they wouldn't invent cars, arts, poetry. All of them come from suffering. Suffering has produced great things. So sometimes I think at the end, if Buddha has no desire, he doesn't need to distract himself. Maybe it's a bit polemical, but what are Buddha talking about when they are together? What can they talk about when they are together? Because if they fundamentally don't feel our suffering and our pleasures, for me, dukkha is a sign that we didn't understand something. There's something we didn't understand. Without dukkha, we can't progress. Like dust on a window that will look nice, or like when we walk, if we don't lose equilibrium, then we can't walk. So what do you think about that? So Rinpoche says there's a lot to say. So let's say first that Buddhas come for holidays in Périgord. Otherwise, maybe we wouldn't be here. So to answer your question, I think we can see it in different ways. Yes, we have dukkha, and there are different levels of understanding of dukkha. There's dukkha as suffering, there's dukkha as pleasure, there's dukkha, there's neither happiness nor suffering. So here one has to refine dukkha's observation, and then according to your logic, we can say that the job of dukkha is to take us back to our original reality. If there was no dukkha, we wouldn't need to look for enlightenment. And dukkha has pushed us to find lots of solutions. And this, if we look, this is what we are actually doing all the time. We always try to lessen suffering, and humans accomplish great things doing so. But did it really end dukkha? Whether it is writing poetry, painting, making new inventions, creating new inventions, nothing ended dukkha actually. It looked like, but these were fake solutions. And actually the solution somehow was shown only by Buddha. The solution that really ends dukkha. So dukkha in Buddhism is not seen as something fundamentally negative. We put ourselves into question, we reflect, we're not lazy, we make efforts thanks to dukkha. Of course, this is also explained For example, in the context of Longjong practice, the mind training, refining one's thought, most often we don't accept suffering or pain. And here in Longjong it is taught as accepting it as an invitation to practice. If I'm suffering, it's because of my own stupidity, of my own confusion. So in that way, dukkha is here because of our own fiction. So dukkha always tries to take us back to our own original or primordial reality. But instead of doing so, we always look around, just look outside around. It's like this Indian legend saying that when humans appeared on earth, all the gods got panicked, thinking all humans will be like them, so they thought they had to hide their divine aspect. So where shall we hide it? Or maybe under the ocean, one said, and Brahma said, no, humans. Brahma said, oh, one day the humans will go under the ocean, they'll find it. And another one said, oh, let's hide it under the earth. And Brahma said, no, one day the humans will go there and will find it. They will find their divine aspect. And at the end, one said, let's hide it very far in the space. And Brahma reflected and said, no. And said, no, one day they'll find it, they'll go there. So where to find it? All the gods were wondering. And Brahma, who was very clever, said, let's hide it in themselves. Because they will never think to look there. So it's a little bit our problem. We all want to end suffering. We look everywhere, but never we look within ourselves. So here it is. Do you have other questions? So it's not really a question. When we talked about the way Buddha act for us, influence us, it seems to me that this brings an understanding that kind of removes suffering. For example, if someone is not nice to us, first instinctively we are not happy, but when we study Dharma, we see his suffering and we develop the wish that he gets rid of his suffering, and we develop love for him. This is thanks to understanding our functioning, and that changes everything. Yes, if we understand causality, then we can see that the person that expresses hostility towards us is himself kind of a victim of his own confusion. He entertains fictions, self-grasping. It makes him suffering, and he's only expressing his own suffering. And so we can take a step back and and we can do not fall into anger. Understanding causality can really help us. Today you talked about the 6 parameters, and when you talked about the 5th one, dhyana, you said it allows one to develop merit and wisdom. I wanted to know if you could develop a little bit on that point. How are these aspects developed, and how is merit developed through dhyana practice? So here, in the context of bodhisattva's practice, the 5 first are called means because they are associated to compassion. It's the practice of compassion. So the bodhisattva here develops dhyana, mostly relying on bodhicitta, meaning he cultivates loving kindness towards all sentient beings as his support. So through this, the support of dhyana development, there's bodhicitta, and developing dhyana, the contemplation capacity, one develops capacity to help beings through that, thanks to samadhi. Just relying on loving kindness, one can give rise to loving kindness from other sentient beings. There was Dharanata's student Dharakota who had all the signs of an accomplished master, and one of them was that when he was entering the loving kindness dhyana towards other sentient beings, all sentient beings around him, even when the air was getting rare, the savage wild animals were coming next to him, licking his body. Birds were coming to him. That was such the power of his samadhi. So through samadhi, one can give rise to qualities in other sentient beings. I'm just giving that example, which shows that through the dhyana we can accomplish sentient beings' benefit. So this dhyana allows one to completely, fully actualize loving kindness, which is indissociable from wisdom. Wisdom itself allows one to perfect those qualities. So it's like our 2 hands. They allows bodhisattva's capacity to accomplish sentient beings' welfare. If the bodhisattva had only discernment, that would take him only to liberation, not to the possibility of developing, of doing sentient beings' welfare. If there was only loving kindness, it couldn't be perfected and couldn't really liberate and benefit all sentient beings until it's not linked to wisdom. So those 2 are indissociable, inseparable. My question is about the 7-branch prayer. As you said, I'm trying to refine my understanding of each branch, and I'm not understanding the 6th one very well. You explained that the Buddha was entering Paranirvana for sentient beings' welfare, and given his great wisdom and his great compassion, it's hard for me to understand why we interfere on his decision, why we ask him to stay if he thinks that it's better for him to go, if he thinks it's better for him to go into Paranirvana. So what came to my mind, and I think it's a mistake, but it is, does the emanation of Buddha come under the law of karma? Because we need to pray them so that they teach. So as I was explaining before, the Buddha have the same nature as the sun, it shines everywhere. it shines on everything, but some water pond don't reflect his shining. It's like us. Why didn't we meet the Buddha? Because we didn't have the predisposition. So why do we pray him to stay? We pray it for all sentient beings, so that they can be Buddha's kind of recipient, and that ourselves, we are lucky enough to directly see the Buddha, receive his teachings, be completely open to him, and be the recipient of enlightenment, and to be able to see that miracle that enlightenment is, and that we be able to actualize enlightenment ourselves. So there is no fundamental contradiction in here. It's part of Buddha's activity. Why? Because of course, it's fundamentally not negative that Buddha goes to paranirvana. There's no regret to have. But at a personal level, we can have regret that we were not lucky enough to see him. Why? Because we didn't have the conditions. And we can also regret that all sentient beings don't have this fortune. And so we can wish that they be able to directly receive teachings from the Buddha and create those predispositions inside our being. So maybe it's about the formulation here. So yeah, when I say that Buddha entered paranirvana, we shouldn't see it as a limitation from the Buddha.
Thank you very much for your teaching.
So Rinpoche is gonna repeat the question for the French people.
I don't hope anything. I'm not afraid of anything. I am free.
Et donc la question, pour résumer, c'était quelle est la différence entre la liberté et...
So to sum up, what's the difference between freedom?
Fundamentally, what is the difference between freedom and, you said, liberation and awakening, right? Donc, oui, dans le bouddhisme, on parle d'aspiration, etc.
Yeah, how does Buddhism help us in everyday life to move away from fear and hope when we talk about aspirations of praying for Buddhism?
So Rinpoche is again saying it in French. So here to answer your question, that's a very interesting question. I think we have to look first, what do we mean by liberation? Meaning I can claim I'm free, I'm gonna do whatever I want, regardless to what others think, regardless the whole world. Somehow we have that freedom to do whatever we want to. But reality is that we are conditioned. We are born, we will die. What happens to us depends on causes and conditions. Even we could also say, why should I follow any discipline? Discipline is conventional, it's relative. Discipline doesn't exist. There are just different cultural moralities, different customs. At the end, it's just relative. I don't mind so much. I'm just gonna do what I want, and this is expressing my freedom. But here we can see that even if we express that, it doesn't guarantee any freedom. We are not really free. Why so? Because we are still conditioned by what we want, what I want. I can think I'm not scared. In French, we make the distinction between courage and temerity. I can also to not see how dangerous things are and to not be scared. I can do whatever I want. We can do what we want. And the fact of thinking it, expressing it, doesn't guarantee any freedom or to be free from conditioning. So that's why, for example, ethical discipline in Buddhism can, of course, like a restriction. It's choosing deliberately to not commit some actions, to not entertain, to not keep some kind of behaviors. So at first it can seem very relative, very conventional, but if you look deeper, it reflects an understanding of causality, how our desires are all based on fictions. So as long as there is fiction, there is no freedom. However much we express it, however much we want to believe, we are not scared. There are some people who are not scared with suffering, jump into suffering. They jump to what is dangerous, but actually suffering is gonna happen because it's conditioned. So what we call liberation, enlightenment, is actually to escape from conditionment's limitation, and this is the real freedom. It is when beyond any affirmation, when we really observe the reality of mind and phenomena as they are ultimately, that we really actualize a real freedom, because we escape from the mechanisms installed by ignorance, afflictions, becoming that samsara is. Hello Rinpoche, I can't stop eating meat. So it is difficult for me because I imagine the karma I'm making. Even if I eat organic meat, hoping animals would be treated better, I think that still they are killed. I reduced my meat eating, but I can't completely stop it. So what can you recommend for me? So what is important here first is to be aware of it, to moderate one's consumption of meat, one's consumption of animals. There are different ways of eating meat. One is eating to survive. One is eating when we are just attached to the pleasure that eating gives us. So when we are just attached to the feeling, in that case, there's no moderation, no consideration towards those sentient beings. Sometimes we may want to eat many little animals because we like their taste, or we want them to be tortured, like boiled alive, because their meat is more tender. This is just for one's desire, for the pleasure of our temporary pleasure of our palate. We are so indifferent to the suffering it can give to another sentient being. So it's important to not cultivate such a behavior and to eat meat just to survive, just to sustain, support one's body so that we are in a good health to practice, to accomplish sentient beings' benefit. So it is important here to reflect on the way we see, on the way we approach food. Yeah, you have to know any food always imply sooner or later another sentient being suffering. So eating just for one's health, less meat in a moderated way. You know, even vegetables, when we harvest, when we cultivate vegetables, many animals are killed so that we can get those vegetables in our plates. No, there is actually no much difference. Many animals have been killed, even for vegetables or cereals. So when we eat, we don't eat just for sense pleasure, but to nourish oneself so that we have strength, energy to practice. And so thinking about those animals, dedicating them the merit of our practice, reciting Dharanis for them that we learned, this is good. If you can be vegetarian, it's really good. So, and as I was saying, the most important is that you don't have a cruel conduct, not eating because of sense pleasure, meat pleasure, but to nourish yourself. I would like to clarify the words aspiration and hope. Aspiration and hope. So hope, I feel, implies some kind of uncertainty. I hope it's gonna be I hope there's going to be a good weather, but I'm not sure. However, here aspiration is like a wish, in a sense that it's more than a wish. It's more than something you want. It's a wish that expresses a kind of determination. It's not like I wish I would like those things to happen and I'm gonna do nothing. It's not in that way. It's like I dedicate, orientate all my being, body, speech, and mind, my activity fully to the accomplishing of this or that. So it's rather a project that is expressed in those wishing prayers or aspiration prayers. It's actually the dedication of one's practice, one's orientation, one's determination, which is here expressed in here. In Tibetan, it's called Menlam. My question is concerning renunciation. As I understood, renunciation is a preliminary to spiritual development. So in lay life, we have all those temptations. So what are the signs that we are actually renouncing? And what is the posture we can adopt concerning mundane life as a layperson? So somehow here it's really the moment when our life circumstances are a bit like secondary, meaning that whether something happens or not, we're not so attached to it. We are not especially attached to it. We are just only attached to inner development, qualities, development. Those are for you your real treasures. So in the ordinary world, what do we call wealth? What is wealth? What is fortune? It's possession, having material goods, resources. Ordinary, this is what we think, our health, our social position. We are very attached to those things, to see very attached to others' way of seeing us, fame, respect that others have are not for us. We are renowned. We are very attached to that. So it shows that somehow the absence of renunciation, all those shows the absence of real engagement on the way. For us, the real treasure when we are engaged on the way is loving kindness, compassion, ethical discipline, generosity, understanding, mind, calmness. And this is more precious than anything else. So for us, we can put the priority on this, and when we do so, this is a sign of disinterest, lack of interest to samsara. Those are the real qualities, source of temporary happiness and ultimate happiness, and especially it's a real interest to wisdom, to discernment. The old yogis used to say, that towards suffering they were like a starving dog. Towards wisdom, sorry. They were insatiable. They were so insatiable, so starving to develop discernment. Another clarification about my preceding question. Most often when I think about dhyana, I think about shine practice, absorption on the breath. So I'm wondering in which circumstances can we pretend or picture that it is really an accumulation of merit, that we are really practicing shine? Does it only depend on the generation of bodhicitta, so that this practice will calm our mind and we'll be able to see the reality behind? Is it the only necessary thing, or are there any extreme we should avoid, so that we keep accumulating merit and wisdom and not just look for all kind of research mundane pleasures? So concerning dhyana, as long as we have any calm instant, we can feel great bliss. We can develop some attachment for that, and here there will be a lack of discernment. It's a kind of karma also that we are creating because we force calmness. But the bodhisattva, even as a beginner, he can use those methods, like focusing on breath. But the real object for the bodhisattva is bodhicitta, and it's cultivated first through the equality of one and the other, exchanging one and the other. So this is, from the beginning, he engages towards calmness, with the bodhicitta, and also discernment is present to not see to not grasp the difference between one and others, to understand others' suffering also. So there is really the emphasis of wisdom that is emphasized from the beginning. So it really depends which instructions we received. But here specifically for bodhisattvas, the support is love and compassion, bodhicitta. And that love and compassion implies an understanding of karma, causality, understanding the delusion of sentient beings, an introduction to emptiness, etc. So, in brief, we try to go quite fast to the union of samatha and vipassana. We try to access that quite as soon as possible, and we engage on one aspect of vipassana, so that through vipassana we can develop samatha. And one important point to understand here, we kind of feel that calmness is taking mind to another state than it is right now, like fabricating a state of mind, a mind state. But actually, mind naturally has this stability quality, this quality of stability. And what is fabricated is the agitation that comes from not recognizing mind's quality. So the more wisdom is here, the more we can actualize the true qualities of mind. So thank you very much for your attention. It was a great pleasure to be with you during those few days. I hope that my explanations could enlighten you on the subject, but also in your personal daily practice. And I make the wish that we'll be able to meet again in the near future to continue the study of this text together, this wonderful text attributed to the Buddha, of course, in which Samantabadhra gives the teaching, the King of Aspiration prayer. And I also invite you, according to your timetable, to read, to try to research other commentaries, maybe some are translated in your language, to make your own research, analyze the subject, to come back on the stanzas, to study them. For our next course on the subject, so that you will be prepared and will be able to go deeper also in the questions and answers. So here, to conclude, some people wanted to take refuge, so please, if you can come forth, please come in front of Rinpoche if you want to take refuge. Please do 3 prostrations in front of the Buddha and the 3 jewels. Please repeat after me. I will submit fast. So the formulation is the following. Buddha and bodhisattvas who are in the 10 directions that we talked about actually in the text. Please be my witness. Masters, please be my witness. I, and you will say my name. From this day and until I be alive, I take refuge in the most sublime being among the men. I take refuge in Dharma and in Sangha, in the Noble Assembly. We repeat them 3 times, and after the 3rd time, you will think that you received refuge. And then I will cut a short piece, a small piece of hair that symbolizes the abandonment of samsara, and you will receive a refuge name. Please repeat after me. Now the third and last repetition that corresponds to the real engagement to take refuge in the three jewels. So it's the same formulation. So you think here that you are in the presence of the three jewels in front of the Buddha, like in the sutra. You are in the presence of all the Buddha in front of them all. You take refuge, and especially in the historical Buddha surrounded by his realized disciples. Like so, you can stand up. This is the haircut time. So the refuge ceremony is finished. So the refuge precepts are the following, meaning that now that you took refuge in the three jewels, it is important to keep in mind the precepts, meaning from now on to always cultivate towards the three jewels, Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, respect and reverence, to take refuge in them in any circumstances, and to always rely on them, and to take as a goal the enlightenment, obtention, realization, to use our time, our resources for the practice as much as we can. And once we've taken refuge in the spiritual world, it's important that we don't take refuge in mundane divinities that are not free from conditioned existence, so that they can't take us to enlightenment. So once you've taken refuge in Dharma, it's important to always try to avoid harming other sentient beings, treating sentient beings as we want them to treat us, treating them with loving kindness and compassion. And finally, having taken refuge in Sangha, we take as spiritual friends, as guides, beings who are teaching the Dharma, who have a real understanding and experience of Dharma, and to not take as a master or spiritual mentor people who wouldn't know or teach the Dharma. So here are the precepts. Thank you. To conclude, if you want, we're gonna recite in French the prayer you have, the King of Aspiration prayer. So we're gonna recite it in English. In all the words, in all 10 directions, reside the Tathagatas of past, present, and future. Before each and every one of these lions among men, I bow down joyfully with body, speech, and mind. By the power of wishes of excellent conduct, each Buddha evoked becomes manifest. With as many bodies as atoms in the universe, I bow down deeply to the victorious ones. Atop one particle, as many Buddhas as particles are settled amidst bodhisattvas, the spiritual heirs. Thus, Dharmadhatu, the entire sphere of being, abounds with Buddhas that I have envisioned. Using every tone of a multitude of melodies, I revere them with boundless oceans of acclaim. Singing the praises of those gone to bliss, I honor your qualities, O victorious ones. Sumptuous flowers, beautiful garlands, precious parasols, fine cymbals and bombs, radiant lamps, and the most fragrant incense, I offer them to you, O victorious ones. Such wonderful arrays, all perfectly presented, exquisite apparel and sweet-smelling perfume, jars of scented powder, piled high like a mountain, I offer them to you, O victorious ones. These vast and superlative offerings express my confidence in all of the Buddhas. With the strength of conviction in excellent conduct, I bow and present them to the victorious ones. Whatever misdeeds I may have committed, through body, speech, and as well as through mind, all outcomes of passion and anger and ignorance, I openly disclose each and every one. I rejoice in each occurrence of merit produced by Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of all 10 directions, by Pratika Buddhas, by those training on the path, by Arhats beyond training, and by every single being. All lanterns who illuminate worlds in all 10 directions, by way of the progressive stages of awakening, you have become Buddhas, free from attachment. Protectors, I entreat you all, turn the supreme wheel. Palms join, I beseech those among you who mean to manifest the state beyond suffering, for as many eons as there are atoms in the universe, remain for the welfare and happiness of all beings. Whatever small merit have been gathered here, through prostrating, offering and disclosing, rejoicing, entreating and beseeching, I dedicate it all for the sake of enlightenment. May the Buddhas of the past and those dwelling presently in the worlds of the 10 directions be honored by offerings. May those yet to come sweetly fulfill their aspiration and attain Buddhahood through the stages of awakening. Wherever there are world systems in the 10 directions, may they, in their great number, become perfectly pure. May these universes abound in victorious ones, who have come before the tree of enlightenment, accompanied by bodhisattvas, their spiritual heirs. May each and every one of the manifold beings of the 10 directions always be happy and healthy. May all beings find true purpose in the Dharma, and in harmony with this, may their hopes be fulfilled. May I carry out the many forms of enlightened conduct and remember past lives when experiencing each new one. During each successive death, transmigration and rebirth, may I always embrace religious life and renounce. Following the example of the victorious ones, may I fully accomplish excellent conduct, and may my moral behavior be flawless and pure. May I conduct myself faultlessly in all situations. May I communicate the Buddha Dharma in every language known to sentient beings, the tongue of gods, nagas, jinns, trolls, and all languages spoken by humankind. Gentle and wise, may I apply myself to the transcendent qualities of the paramitas, while never losing sight of awakening mind. As for all harmful acts that have resulted in vice, may they be entirely purified without exception. May I be liberated from negative karma, disturbing emotions, and the actions of maras. Wherever there are world systems and beings, may I be like the lotus not clung to by water, and the sun and the moon, and hindered in the sky. Throughout each of the realms in every direction, may I pacify all suffering of the unfortunate realms. May I establish all beings in happiness, and may I be of assistance to everyone. May I perfect the practice of enlightened conduct in accord with the various lifestyles of beings. May I fully exemplify excellent conduct and continue to do so during all future eons. May I always be accompanied by those friends whose practice and conduct resemble my own, with regard to our body, speech, and mind. May all of our actions and prayers be as one. May I always encounter companions who exemplify excellent conduct and have my well-being at heart. May I never let these teachers down. May I always directly perceive the victorious ones, the protectors, and their entourage of bodhisattvas. Throughout all future eons, may I never grow weary of honoring them with remarkably vast offerings. May I uphold the genuine Dharma of the Buddhas and make enlightened conduct fully manifest. May I be perfectly trained in excellent conduct, wholeheartedly continuing for eons to come. Through all my existences, may they be there within samsara, may I acquire inexhaustible merit and wisdom. May this become a never-ending treasure of qualities, methods, superior knowledge, samadhi, and liberation. Atop one particle, there are as many realms as atoms. In each pure realm, more Buddhas that can be imagined reside amidst bodhisattvas, their spiritual heirs. May I see them and emulate their enlightened activity. Likewise, in absolutely every direction, within the space on the tip of one hair, there are oceans of Buddhas of past, present, and future, oceans of pure realms and oceans of eons. May I fully take part in his enlightened activity. The sound of one instant of the Buddha's speech, with its ocean of qualities, holds the pure range of harmonious expressions of all victorious ones. It is the very melody of each being's understanding. May I always engage in the speech of the Buddhas. All the victories of the past, present, present, and future, fully turn the wheel of Dharma in a variety of ways. Through the power of mind, may I also participate in the boundless expression of their melodious speech. In a single instant, may I engage in all future eons which will be experienced in just a split second. May I take part in any of all of the eons of the 3 times. In the space of a single moment, may I behold all lions among men of past, present, and future. May I continually engage in their field of experience through the power of illusion-like spiritual liberation. The clusters of galaxies of past, present, and future have all been established atop a single particle. Accordingly, in all directions, without exception, may I take part in the pure realms of the victors. The learners of the world who have yet to come, with all by stages, become fully enlightened, turn the wheel of the Dharma, and demonstrate the state beyond suffering, ultimate peace. May I be in the presence of all those protectors. By virtue of the powers of miraculous swiftness, the powers of the manifold approaches of the yanas, the powers of practice endowed with all qualities, the powers of omnipresent loving kindness, the powers of perfectly virtuous goodness, the powers of unbounded timeless wisdom, the powers of knowledge, means, and deep meditation, may I truly achieve the many powers of awakening. May I completely purify the powers of karma, fully defeat the powers of the afflictions, utterly disable the powers of the maras, and bring the power of excellent conduct to perfection. May I totally purify oceans of realms, entirely liberate oceans of beings, clearly behold oceans of Dharma, wholly integrate oceans of wisdom, patently clarify oceans of conduct, perfectly fulfill ocean of aspiration, honor oceans of Buddhas with my offerings, and practice tirelessly during oceans of eons. Once I have awakened and attained Buddhahood by means of the practice of excellent conduct, may I fulfill all special wishes of enlightened conduct expressed by victorious ones of past, present, and future. The eldest son of the victorious ones is known as Samantabadhra, the all-excellent. In order to equal his masterful skill, I perfectly dedicate all forms of merit. May I be comparable to Samantabhadra, his utterly pure body, speech, and mind, his totally pure conduct, perfectly pure realms, and superior skills in dedicating merit. So as to completely achieve excellent goodness, I will carry out Manjushri's aspiration prayers, continuing tirelessly throughout future eons. I will accomplish every last one of his activities. May my actions be free of limitations, and my qualities also be without bounds. May I remain engaged in activities beyond measure, and may I come to know all of their manifestations. They are countless beings, as limitless as the very confines of the endless sky. Whatever their karma and affliction may be, may my wishing prayers encompass them all. We may embellish the infinite realms of the 10 directions with precious gems and present them to the victorious ones. We may offer the finest pleasures of gods and humans during as many eons as there are atoms in the universe. Even so, paramount indeed is the exceptional merit of those of us who have heard this king of dedications, are truly determined to pursue supreme enlightenment and give rise to genuine faith, be it just for a moment. Those who practice this prayer of excellent conduct will turn away from rebirth in the lower realms, sever all ties to unwholesome companions, and promptly behold Amitabha, pure light. They will be perfectly comfortable and lead happy lives. In this lifetime as well, comfort and happiness will reign. Without delay, they will become similar in every way to Samantabhadra, the excellent one. If this prayer of excellent conduct is recited by those who have committed by reason of ignorance the 5 most negative acts of direct consequence, these all will be quickly and thoroughly purified. Practitioners will have wisdom, the shapeless physique, excellent science, a noble family, and a fine complexion. The many maras and heretics will be powerless against them, and they will be honored throughout the three worlds. They will go quickly before the great Bodhi tree and settle there for the benefit of sentient beings. As awakened Buddhas, they will turn the wheel of Dharma, prevailing against all of the maras and their legions. The Buddha alone father. Yep. Sorry, Rinpoche was too fast for me. Thank you, everybody. Come back safe and see you next time. See you soon.